Are you sitting comfortably?
Welcome to this video on the Fiat Ducato. I don't know where to look. On this one, we are lowering the bunk bed, the upper bed in the back, to give my daughter a little bit more headroom and make a few little modifications in the back while we're at it as well. Let's crack on. Which way do you look?
So let's get these doors open and crack on with the task in hand. This is a 4-berth T669, so you can have a twin bed up top and a twin bed downstairs. You can split them and have 2 singles, which is what I generally have, or you can take the top bunk out altogether and have a nice double with loads of headroom down the bottom. The issue I've got is my daughter's getting a bit older. She's 12 going on 16 and growing up fast and needs a little bit more room. And she's finding it a little bit claustrophobic up there, especially when she's like lying on her side or trying to read or something like that. I took it upon myself just to drop the brackets down to the lowest point. Only gave me 1 anchor, but nevertheless gave me about 4.5 inches additional headroom up top, which surprisingly made quite a bit of difference and still left me with adequate amount underneath. There was always plenty there in the first place, so it was kind of a bit of a win-win all round. The only issue that was bothering me the most was trying to create a second fixing for that lower setting. And I was concerned as to whether the plate that they install travels down that support member behind the panel, and if so, how far it travels down, so that I could possibly drill it, put in a new riv nut and give it the 4 bolts that it really requires to be securely fixed to the wall. So let's clear the space and give ourselves a better look at the job in hand. So before I dropped the bracket, it was 19.5 inches from the ceiling, and after dropping the bracket, it was 23.5 inches from the ceiling. So 4 inches has made a huge difference. So all stripped out, what I need to find out is whether that plate runs down that back wall. I was fortunate to be able to use a magnet to determine whether that plate was continuous behind the panel, which it was. So before I undo anything, the first thing I'm going to do is drill a pilot hole in the centre. It's about 3mm. I'll do one either end, just to see how I get on going through that plate. My drill bits aren't the best, so I am changing them quite a bit. Take extra care to not push too hard and go too far into the wall. You've got about 2.5 inches between you and the outer skin of the van. So that all went well. Next job, remove my storage boxes. I bought these in P.M.M. a few years back now, and they've been absolutely incredible and saved me a lot of aggro with storage, and I'll probably give them a bit of a facelift as well. So I'm now going to remove the grey bracket from the wall using they're a hex bolt on this particular fitment. Undo the 2, support that bracket well because mine is really heavy. Drop it down and we'll get it out of the way. I'm enlarging my pilot hole now to enable me to get a core cutter in, because we're going to need to create a big enough space to get the head of the riv nut gun in. So this core cutter is literally just giving me a bigger space on both pilots. Now I am just enlarging the hole again. I'm using M8 riv nuts. So we're looking at, I think it's 10mm, but you need to check that. but I have really poor quality drill bits and I am struggling. But remember what I said, do not push too hard. Keep a firm grip of your drill and know when you're almost through in order to stop yourself drilling a hole in the outside of the van. And now I'm going to install the riv nut. It's M8, as I said. It's actually the same size as the existing ones that were factory. First time I've used a riv nut gun. Does it show? But they've gone in really well, nice and flush. You never quite know how hard to squeeze it, but they're in there and they're not coming out. See what I mean about having a hole big enough for the head of the riv nut gun to go into, otherwise you won't get the riv nut flush against the metal plate. And I'm now just unscrewing the centre to release myself from the riv nut. Let's try a bolt in there. That's one of the existing bolts and it goes in beautifully. So the rail is now fitted back to the wall. I've just got to put the caps over the nuts, but really pleased with that, and it's a good solid fit. I need to work out what I'm going to do about blanking off those two upper holes, but that's the least of my worries. But at least if you ever wanted to return the bed back to its original factory position, then it is easily done. And this is the other side with caps fitted back. I did mention that I might give these a bit of a facelift, so I'm coating them in an adhesion promoter because they're plastic, and I'm going to try and give them a little bit of a closer match to my interior currently in the van. So after a coat of etch primer, I am now starting off. I painted them white with an aerosol gloss, and then I go over them with a dusting of yellow and repeat as necessary till I get something a little bit closer to the interior of the van. I was indeed a little bit low on paint, so I didn't colour where it wouldn't be seen, i.e. under the brackets or on the backs. But you'll see the finished article a little bit later on. Now, I don't want any bad comments, but this is what happened to them, and this is where they're at and where they're staying for now. So I'm fitting the boxes back. They are a little bit more yellow than I anticipated. I really went a little bit too wild with it, but they're better than the black and the grey. They do blend in a little bit. You know, they'll grow on me. Let's just say that. They're going to grow on me. Anyway, I'm putting the bolts back in. I am going to install a couple of strip lights inside these boxes, because one of the problems that I have with them is that I can never find anything in there, because if you imagine there's going to be a bed base over the top of that, so it can be quite dark in there, and when the back doors are closed, which is more often than not, I just can't find anything. One of my upgrades is going to be installing a couple of strip lights, LEDs, in that back box each side, and what I will do is run the cable across the bed over to the other side, where I'll pick up a light switch, which will be easily removed if you want to move the beds or take them out, because they'll have snap fittings along the way, and I'm clearly more interested in what the time is than getting the job finished. These extra storage boxes have come in really handy, particularly if you go away for long periods of time, as I have done in the past with my trips to Europe. I can't be without them, really. They really are a big bonus. Good. So you're a bit of a twat. That don't impress me much. So that's my storage boxes reinstalled. I've put my clips back on and my nets, and I put a few bits that I had lying around in there just to sort of demonstrate their purpose. So I'm going to put the bed base back, finish off the electrics, and then this little upgrade is ready for testing. One of the other issues that I've noticed recently is the bed feels a little bit soft for me, and I'm just putting a level over the top of the slats. This is my daughter's bed, so this is like a child's berth, so it's not an adult's berth in that respect, but you can see where the level is that some of these slats on her bed these are all good and high. This one's dropped, this one has dropped, that one over there has dropped. See if I can upgrade those. This net is just, it goes up like that at night just to stop her falling out of bed. And then the lower one, which is mine, bearing in mind this is a single setup, there's another one of these which goes where the camera is right now to make it into a double. Don't know, I'm sitting on the frame here. This one's quite high anyway, but if you look at these two in the middle, they're already almost flat rather than have a slight ridge in them. So you can see there the gaps that we're dealing with. So these three here, I replaced them myself, and I've got a funny feeling that when you have to cut them normally, you have to cut them down, and I've got a funny feeling that I cut them down too much, so that when they sit in their shoulders here and here, there is room for you to put one in the middle. If you want to double it up, you can do. But I think if you cut them too short, then when the load is applied to them, the ends have got nothing to push against until they meet here, which is where the resistance comes in. This one feels a lot tighter in there than this one does. And I think maybe I cut them too short, which is why the older ones are still performing better than the newer ones, or were they just rubbish bits of timber? But I'm gonna make them a little bit longer and add 2 or 3 in here. The only time consuming thing about adding slats to the bed is that you've got to unscrew the frames to get in there. But I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm halfway there technically, because everything's stripped out. So this plate here holds the 2 sections, oops, of the bed framed together. Yeah, I'm going to undo the lot just in case. Don't lose those little gems. That'll do it. So what I'm going to do... Now they've all fallen out. The original ones have got staples in them, holding them into their collars. That's why that one hasn't come out. But I'm just going to put one of my old ones back in to see if there's a huge gap between the collars and the frame. But they actually seem to fit in there perfectly. So maybe I haven't cut them too short after all. They are on the ends, they're in there.
Now, I've actually just thought about what I said previously, in that I thought the slats that I'd cut before were indeed not the wrong size. But of course, if they've gone flat, they are going to sit tighter in these ends. So I think I probably had cut them a little bit too short. These are the only 4 new ones that I have. And what I'm doing at the moment is I've removed a couple of the old ones, but that goes in there like that. And then holding the frame, prise it open and slot that in there. Now, when I close it up, I can actually feel a bit more tension on there, and it's got to go together another inch yet, half inch yet. So I'm going to also use some of the older ones as well, which is something you can do. Why they don't do it, I don't know. Does it make it too firm? We don't know. That's an old one, and this is a new one, and so is that. So they're going to drop down and meet this one. That's my idea anyway. So it'll be interesting to see whether I notice this when I go away New Year. So yeah, so that's going to give my backside a little bit more support. Well, that's the plan anyway. I need to really, I think, purchase some new bolts. You've just got to close it up. Yeah. And that's the panel back. So that's it, back in position. So I've kind of based it on my head's there, my shoulders are here, and my backside's here. So I've got that extra strength in it. I'll see how it goes. I think the cushions, the mattresses could also do with a refresh as well, but we'll see how that goes. But my base is a lot shorter than the upper, purely and simply because it runs the width of the Campervan. I'm going to put a couple of extra ones in the middle here for Zoe, just to strengthen it up a little bit for her, and we'll see how that pans out. But I do actually think if it doesn't go back together with a struggle when you're putting those new slats in, then there isn't any tension there on the panels, which is kind of what I've learned from doing it once before. Definitely make sure you don't cut them too short. So the box is all finished. This is my wiring connection for my lights that I've just fitted inside the storage boxes. And then these just simply go up there like that. Like that. They've also got a little pocket in the front as well. That's what you want. So let's put the bed back. And you can also see that I've put in a strip of LEDs underneath. This is it finished. I have my little fairy lights around the back, and then we've got our fitted lights on dimmer control. These are the 2 remaining touch sensitive lights. If you remember, I had 2 underneath here, which I have now replaced with some LEDs. They're on a remote control, colour changing, fixed colour. Then over the other side, we have the 2 lockers, and I have a switch which now lights those lockers up. So that's all cool. I'm quite happy with that. The colour's not too bad. They were black before, they're now a creamy colour. But overall, a nice bright space.
So he's got a safety net. We won't turn that up too bright because it goes all a bit haywire. And that is the aft space. The purpley blue is definitely my favourite. Up here we have a couple of fans. They are really good. They're USB chargeable. They go for a full day on a charge. Got those on Amazon. Really, really good. And they're very quiet. We had them on at night when we were in Italy and in Switzerland. And you can adjust. We've got them situated so that you can adjust them up, down, whatever. You can see that's on 40%. You can see the airflow, and they're clearly not that loud. And that is job done till the next thing comes into my head. So this is where I say thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Let me know if you haven't, or even if you have. Like and subscribe if you can. Catch you later. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.